imagine more stories that soar. Business, life, and so much more. Laughs, lessons, and local delight. It's the podcast that feels just right. It's the Imagine More Podcast!
Welcome to a special edition of the Imagine More Podcast. Today we're doing something a little different. Instead of talking business or community, we're diving into something a bit darker. The haunted heart of Moore County, North Carolina. Now, I'll be honest, I love ghost stories, but I'm not what you'd call brave. In fact, I'm recording this in the middle of the day because there is no way I'd be telling these stories after dark. Still, I've had a few experiences that made me wonder about things that can't be explained. I've seen books fly across a room, watched a television flicker on and off by itself, always tuned to static. I felt cold air drift through a heated room, and one night, while I was lying in bed, the entire room began to spin, though I was perfectly still. Moments like those stay with you, long after the lights come back on. Maybe that's why I'm drawn to these stories, the ones that make you pause and ask, what if? So today we'll explore Moore County's most mysterious places, from the haunted halls of the Weymouth Center to the cold cells of the Old Carthage Jail, the tragic tale of the Princess of Pinehurst, and the watchful silence of Bethesda Cemetery. Even in broad daylight, these stories still give me chills. Our journey begins right here in Southern Pines, at one of Moore County's most beloved landmarks, the Weymouth Center for the Arts and Humanities, also known as the Boyd House. Built in the early 1920s by novelist James Boyd, Weymouth was once filled with laughter, parties, and writers tapping away on typewriters. It's where legends like Thomas Wolfe, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and Sherwood Anderson once stayed. But when the guests go home and the house grows still, Weymouth tells a different story. Writers and residents have shared chilling accounts of footsteps echoing across the second-floor balcony, pots and pans clanging in the empty kitchen when no one's there, and doors creaking open or slamming shut with no one nearby. Some say they've heard the faint sound of music, a waltz played on an unseen piano, drifting down the hall like a memory that refuses to fade. And then there's her, the ghost of a young woman who, according to legend, took her own life inside the mansion. Those who've seen her describe her as kind, almost curious. She's said to wear a white nightgown, her dark hair falling loose around her shoulders. She appears quietly in doorways or mirrors, sometimes sitting at the end of a bed, as if simply checking in on whoever's there. One writer said he woke to find her standing near the window, looking out toward the gardens. When he blinked, she was gone, but the curtains were still swaying. Others tell stories of beds shifting slightly, covers being pulled off in the middle of the night, or feeling someone sit beside them when they're completely alone. But not every encounter is gentle. Two sisters once reported that as they walked down the grand staircase, they heard a man scream in one of their ears.
"Push her down the stairs!"
They fled the house and refused to return. Paranormal investigators, including the Ghost Guild, have spent nights here using EMF meters and recorders. They've documented cold spots, sudden bursts of static energy, and even voices whispering names that match old guest records. And some say James Boyd himself still lingers, hosting invisible gatherings in the old drawing room. After midnight, people have heard laughter, furniture moving, the clinking of glasses, and faint classical music coming from locked rooms. I have my own connection to Weymouth's story. I live in a house once owned by Sam Reagan and his wife, two people deeply tied to Weymouth's history. When we first moved in, our puppies would bark at something unseen. The woman who lived there before told me her dog refused to go upstairs. We laugh and say, Sam's still here. Maybe that's part of Weymouth's magic, the stories, the memories, the people who built this community. They never really leave. If you want to check it out, the house is open from 10 to 4, and right now there is a haunted tour. This Saturday, tomorrow, November the 1st, the house will be open for a very special haunted tour. Go on in. It's free, and the staff can tell you about their experiences with the ghostly acquaintances. Just north of Southern Pines stands one of the oldest and most haunted buildings in Moore County, the Old Carthage Jail on McNeil Street. Built in 1850, it once housed Confederate prisoners, outlaws, and Prohibition bootleggers. The cells are small and windowless, from the iron bars still cold to the touch. And even though the building has been empty for decades, people say it's never really silent. Visitors describe hearing chains rattling, voices calling from the upper floor, and a faint thud of boots pacing back and forth, as if a restless guard still walks his nightly rounds. One investigation, a paranormal team heard a voice whisper the word, Eli. No prisoner by that name was ever recorded, but the whisper was clear enough to make them freeze in place. Another investigator felt a hand tug her sleeve, while a guest during a public tour said something pulled her ponytail when she was standing completely alone. Locals who've stepped inside describe a chill that seeps straight into their bones, the kind that isn't about temperature at all. One woman said it felt like the air was thick with sadness, like the building itself remembered every cry that echoed through it. On the second floor, there's a heavy steel door that creaks open by itself, even when locked. And sometimes, in the dead of summer, the room suddenly grows so cold, your breath turns visible. Investigators are careful with their words. They don't call it haunted. They call it active. Standing in that jail, you can almost hear the sighs of the forgotten, the sound of people waiting for freedom that never came. Now we move to Pinehurst, a village of golf, grace, and one of North Carolina's most haunting unsolved mysteries: the tragic death of Elva Statler Davidson, known as the Pinehurst Princess. Elva was just 22, young, beautiful, an heiress to the Statler Hotel fortune. She had jet black hair, porcelain skin, and a wardrobe filled with Parisian gowns. Locals remembered her arriving at parties in shimmering silver dresses that caught every flicker of candlelight. In February of 1935, only weeks after her wedding to Bradley Davidson, her body was found in the garage of their Pinehurst estate. Halfway out of her Packard automobile, which was still running, she wore a silk skirt, a cream sweater, and slippers, her hair undone. The coroner said she died of carbon monoxide poisoning. Her husband called it suicide, but the town called it something else entirely. She had rewritten her will just weeks earlier, leaving her entire inheritance to Davidson. They had argued the night before at a ball, where she was seen crying, her gown torn slightly at the shoulder. Later, she dined alone at a small Italian restaurant, trembling and distraught. The next morning, she was gone. The inquest became a sensation. Photographers crowded the courthouse steps. Newspapers across the country labeled her the Pinehurst Princess. Friends testified about jealousy, about control, about a man with debts, and a temper. But despite the whispers, no charges were ever filed. Some say Elva's ghost still walks near the old hotels and village streets, seen at dusk in a silver gown, drifting silently between the lampposts. Others claim that mirrors in certain Pinehurst rooms fog mysteriously, leaving faint handprints, small, feminine, as if she's trying to write her side of the story. To this day, no one knows whether her death was suicide, murder, or something in between, but her story remains one of the most haunting in all of North Carolina, a tale of beauty, betrayal, and a spirit that refuses to be forgotten. If you want to know more about it, you can find the book, The Pinehurst Princess, at the country bookstore. One last stop brings us to Aberdeen, where the oldest souls in Moore County rest, at Bethesda Cemetery. Founded in the 1700s, it's a place of deep stillness. Weathered stones tilted by time, pines whispering overhead, the scent of moss and earth in the air. Even in the daytime, Bethesda has a presence. It feels watchful, as if the past is holding its breath. People who visit tell stories that are gentle but unsettling. A gray figure in a long coat seen drifting near the back oak tree. A faint glow hovering low between the graves, moving slowly, almost like it's searching. And on the oldest path, where the earliest settlers are buried, some have heard humming, the tune of an old hymn, Come Thou Font, carried softly on the wind. One story tells of a mother and a child buried together in the 1800s. Visitors say that on cool mornings, when fog settles low to the ground, they've heard the faint sound of a baby crying. When they follow the sound, it fades. Even so, it's hard to stand in Bethesda, even by daylight, and not feel something, that quiet hum of the past. You sense that those resting there are still part of this land, still listening, still watching over the town they helped build. Bethesda reminds us that Moore County's history doesn't disappear. It lingers, whispering softly through the pines. So there you have it, the haunted heart of Moore County. From grand mansions to forgotten jails. From a princess lost to tragedy to a cemetery that still hums with memory. The sandhills hold stories that refuse to rest. Maybe ghosts aren't here to scare us. Maybe they're reminders of how deeply places can remember and how love, loss, and legacy linger long after we're gone. I hope you've enjoyed this Halloween morning edition of the Imagine More podcast. If you've had your own ghostly encounter or a story that can't quite be explained, I'd love to hear it. Share it with me on Facebook or Instagram, or visit imaginemorepodcast25.podbean.com. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like this episode. It helps us grow, reach more listeners, and bring even more local stories. The magical, the meaningful, and yes, the mysterious to life. Until next time, keep your lights on, your curiosity alive, and remember, there's always more to the story. Can you
Imagine more stories that soar. Business, life, and so much more. Laughs, lessons, and local delight. It's the podcast that feels just right.